Welcome back to That Rugby podcast, brought to you by the Sports Booth. You are joined by myself and Hughesy after the final round of the Rugby Championship and a couple other things happening in the rugby world.
Yeah, not much worth talking about though. Don't know why we're even doing this episode. Absolutely nothing worth talking about whatsoever. If you're a Wallabies fan.
If you're a Wallabies fan, yeah. I mean, other than maybe Pistol Pete putting in another.
Yeah, put in a good shift. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get to watch much of the game. The parts of it I did watch, pretty average. I don't know. Like, you know, you can't always put everything on the ref. As much as I feel like calls went against Australia, at some point, though, you've got to take responsibility and start playing to what the ref is calling. And, I mean, it's hard. I get it. The referees are from all different parts of the world, and the standard is all over the place at the moment, so you don't know what they're going to call every single game. But somehow Australia always seems to be on the short end of the stick, and at some point you can't be looking at the referees and pointing the fingers at the referees. At some point you've got to look at yourselves and be like, why is it always us getting called out?
Why us?
Why us, right? And, you know, are we too lippy to the referees and they don't like the Australian attitude? I don't think so, really. I think most of the time when I see the Aussies on the rugby pitch, they're generally pretty good, with the exception maybe Nick White. But even then, it's not that bad.
It's a halfback.
Yeah, and look, it's rugby as well, right? Like, you know, it's rugby. It's not rugby league, right? You know, they're not calling them by their first names and everything like that. So I don't think it's that. At some point, it is just discipline, and we just got to be better. You know, there are certain ones like Jed Holloway's yellow card. I thought was a bit rough. What's he supposed to do in that situation?
I think it's warranted.
Yeah.
But it's unlucky. It's hella unlucky. Like the situation, him and like neither of the Wilson nor Jed Holloway know the other one's going to be doing that. And if it's just one of them doing it, that situation doesn't happen.
So like there's some like that where it's just like it's a bad roll of the dice.
Yeah. How the fuck did we get that one again? Like that's just It's
a bad roll of the dice. But there are others of them where you've just got to be that little bit better, and we've got to be just that little bit tighter. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's. I think the rugby skills side of it, the Wallabies have looked better, sure, but that doesn't matter when you're giving away such a lopsided penalty count, because then you don't have the ball ever, and so
100%.
You know. And I think the Wallabies showed really great defence when Holloway went off for the first period of the game, where they were down a man and they didn't concede any points. Oh, that was great. But then that sucks so much energy out of you that you put in a lesser performance for the rest of the game. So 100%. It all adds up, especially against a quality opponent like New Zealand and the quality opponents will play in the World Cup and things like that. So yeah, discipline's just got to be better. So
it was my one big work on from them. If you haven't watched, I did a Rugby Championship review on our YouTube channel, and I think that was the one big work on I had for them was primarily their discipline. Discipline within the game, too many cards, discipline with at certain moments. It was discipline. It was what cost the Wallabies a couple of crucial moments, I feel like, especially when you look at those All Blacks games.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tough act. Good news has come out today that apparently Eden Park will be off limits for the All Blacks next year when the Rugby Championship in Bledisloe is on, because of the Women's Football World Cup that I think we are dual hosting with you lot.
Wonderful.
So, I mean, that's positive news. Does it mean you'll end up with a Bledisloe? Probably not. But I was fascinated. I think this is probably our best Rugby Championship we've had in a while. I said it in the video as well. I said, not just as in I as a New Zealander, but I as in all four nations. I think it's been coming for a while. We needed a competitive Rugby Championship, and I feel like we finally got one that delivered on that. So, I mean, yeah, I'm as a New Zealander, am I happy with how the Rugby Championship went?
Well, you'd be stupid if you weren't.
I mean, that's the thing. Through the absolute, you know, rhetoric that's been going around, the absolute disgustingness.
Ian Foster out.
Ian Foster out. This is the worst New Zealand All Blacks team ever that we got at the start of the tournament to come home with a Freedom Cup. We came home with a Bledisloe Cup and the Rugby Championship. It feels pretty good. You know what I actually think this is? And I think there was a moment in that Wallabies game that I think summated everything. And it was Angus Bell against Tyrell Lomax. And again, I take us back to this room not too long ago where Angus Bell and Aja Holtz absolutely sent Tyrell Lomax and Xavier Numia back to the bin. And Tyrell Lomax won 2 penalties against Angus Bell, and I was like, this is just. It feels like the All Blacks have come around. Like we've gone around the dark side of the moon. Like we're in the light again.
You've gone through that. You've gone through the pain, and now you've got the gain.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just
it's funny because for a Wallabies supporter, this has been happening for 20 years, whereas our pain was like 2 games.
Yeah. You lost to Argentina and South Africa. Jesus, what a struggle you lot have been through, and the amount of whinging that came out of New Zealand about those losses. But you lost to Ireland, Argentina, and South Africa. Now, where's Argentina ranked in the world at the moment?
They're 6.
They're 6. Yeah, so you lost to 3 top 10 sides, right? You could say, if you want to be even more specific, top 7, top 6 sides or whatnot, right? You lost to them.
So yeah,
and the amount of whinging that's come out, like the All Blacks, the stuff like the All Blacks. What is it? The All Blacks sort of like mystique is gone, right? The All Blacks are immortal again. It's not the same. Anyone involved should be ashamed. All these modern kids don't know what it means to be an All Black. Things like that. You lost 4 games. Wow. We lost 4 games in 6 weeks. We lost 4 games this year, all right? Like, give me a break. But it just shows what a melodramatic lot you guys are over there in New Zealand, right? What a spoiled bunch you are there of a team that's that good. I wish I was that spoiled.
You'd take 1 year of the All Blacks, the Wallabies putting All Black-like performances out there, and you'd be a happy camper, wouldn't you?
If they could do it next year, yeah, for sure. Capture the World Cup, the Bledisloe next year. I'll shut up for a while after that.
I found it funny. Ireland currently ranked number 1 in the world. South Africa number 3. Argentina number 6. Not bad teams to be losing to. If you compare this to what you'd say a Wallabies team who let's say are normally ranked 4th-ish around there, losing to one would probably be the All Blacks. Losing to a 3 would probably be about South Africa, which you're not going to complain too much about. And then a one-off loss against Argentina.
And we lost to England as well, who's probably
3rd. No, they must be 5th or something around there.
They're up there though.
It goes Ireland, France, South Africa, New Zealand, England, Argentina.
All the teams we lost to, bar Argentina, have been higher than us in the rankings.
And even Argentina are now as well.
Yeah.
So, which is...
But I don't think they were when we lost to them.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I think after that All Blacks win, they probably go.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting rugby world at the moment.
It could be worse. We could be Italy rugby supporters.
Exactly. Yeah.
We could be USA getting knocked out by Chile, not even in the World Cup.
Well, no.
Well, they were. Well,
they were at that moment. Yeah. Not in the road. Yeah, having to go for a different path. Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Again, could be worse. I'm blessed. It could, as far as it says, it could be worse. Means being a Wallaby supporter to me. That's my worst. Like I'm like, imagine not winning a Bledisloe for 20 years.
Yeah. You know what would be even worse than that? Being a Springbok fan and just being the most whingy fuck on the internet.
I do. I think, and it's just funny. I would love to have known what would have happened if the call that the Wallabies went through happened to Andre Pollard.
Oh my goodness!
Imagine the absolute disarray that would have caused in the social media world.
Johannesburg would have burnt to the ground. Right? There would have been riots across South Africa. There would have been riots across South Africa and across most of Western Australia based on how many South Africans live there as well in Adelaide. Imagine that happened. I mean, imagine that happened to Geordie or Bowden Barrett or Richie Mo'unga, right? What would have happened in New Zealand? Imagine that happens to Marcus Smith, right?
Yep.
Far out. London Bridge would have fallen again. And you look at any nation and imagine that happening to them, and there's rioting in the streets. Australia, we're just so used to it. It's just another Thursday to us.
Typical Wallabies. Yep.
A typical refs cursing the Wallabies, just taking it away from us. Oh, sorry, I was just channeling some Springbok fans I saw on Facebook there. Just everything's always against us. Oh, God.
I mean, but like I was saying, good rugby championship, great rugby championship, one of the best, if not.
I mean,
the best.
Up until this last week, it was open. Like it could have. It was mathematical to go to anyone this week, I think, except for Argentina.
No,
even they had to get a bonus point.
If you had knocked us off and not got a bonus point, and they had knocked South Africa off and got a bonus point, they would have won.
There you go. So it was mathematically possible for everyone in the last week to win it.
Yeah,
which is great. Exactly. You know what I'd like to see? I want to see another team in there. Get Japan in here.
I would love that as well. Yeah. I think. Like I said this in the video, I fucking had to reshoot it about 100 times because I'm shit with IT and fucking record without the camera going or record without the mics going.
All falls apart while I'm not here.
Yeah, it does. You're not wrong. But since the Tri Nations left, the aura has definitely been off the Rugby Championship. It's not so much like I remember the Tri Nations back early days where you were like, oh fuck, I just want to beat South Africa. I want to beat.
Yeah.
It's not so much that. This was the first year I was like, okay, there's some competitive. I definitely think there's an opportunity to grow this. And we're going to touch base on this soon about the Super Rugby because I know Japan have come out and offered a saving grace, which I think could work really well. But I don't mind that idea, even though I haven't even really put too much thought into it. I like the idea of getting Japan in there. They've shown they can beat South Africa. They've shown on the global stage. I would like two type of Six Nations situation. I think it would be a great thing for rugby. It would be different. But the fascinating thing with like a Six Nations, and what I love about the Six Nations as well, is you play everyone once. You've only got one opportunity. If you have to go away to South Africa, you have to go away to South Africa. You don't get the choice. Again, you could do that 5 and then have a separate Bledisloe game that doesn't count towards that. I think would be fascinating. I would love to see what we just saw with the Pacific Nations Cup and the winner of that also get included into something like that some way. Again, I don't know. You don't want to go to expanding it too quickly. Samoa clearly aren't at the level of a Wallabies or All Blacks or South Africa, but if we want to get these teams better, I think there's an opportunity there, and Japan's 100%. Definitely the first step.
Yeah, 100%. And, the Tri Nations had its mystique because it was just those 3 nations, right? If it's not going to be just those 3 nations anymore, then, look into what it could be. Like the Tri Nations, it's like, the Bledisloe's...
The Bledisloe.
It's relatively unchanged, right? The Tri Nations was the Tri Nations. It was a great concept. It's gone away now. So then, okay, we're looking at the Rugby Championship. Yeah, it doesn't sound like, oh, yeah, we won the Rugby Championship. Everyone's just sort of like, oh, what's that? It doesn't matter. But hearing someone say, oh, we won the Tri Nations, oh, yeah, that's great, Yeah. But so we need to build it into its own thing and distinguish it from the Tri Nations and, including more countries in there to make it more like a Six Nations kind of thing, I think is a good idea. I mean, look, it was already, and it's not saying like this year was bad and needs improvement. We just said this year was good, but it's like, what more can we do to build the game and build this competition up?
I mean, and the fascinating thing, you just call it the Six Nations. You have the Northern Hemisphere Six Nations, the Southern Hemisphere Six Nations. I think it works really well. I think it's a great...
Northern Hemisphere winner, the Six Nations plays the Southern Hemisphere winner. I mean, look, the possibilities are endless, world rugby. I don't know. Look, we've been saying this for, I don't even know how many episodes we've been doing this podcast for, but just like, we're available. Hire us. We've got all these good ideas, putting them out there for free. And
I saw David Campese, and I'll have to do some research into some of his ideas because he posted on Instagram and it was like, I've shared my ideas with the Wallabies and it's fallen on, or Australian rugby, and it's fallen on deaf ear. What are your ideas? And I didn't go too much into it. The comments were pretty fucking shit when I first got there.
Yeah.
But I would love, because David Campese is quite an outspoken guy. Like he loves his opinion, and it's not, again, he's come from years of experience. So I may, for our next podcast, go and do some research into what David Campese has said in the past and see maybe if it's good ideas, bad ideas, how it can work, because he's very, I guess, not against, I don't want to say against Rugby Australia, but believes there could be a lot of improvements. And from one of the game's greats over here, it is an interesting...
Well, yeah, they're not exactly a resounding success story right now, are they? So,
not exactly. So, yeah, I mean, again, on the video, I touched points on all of this, but I thought it was a good time for me and Hughesy to discuss some of the positives or negatives from each team in the Rugby Championship. We've discussed the Wallabies and their discipline. I think that's probably
that's a negative. I guess the positive for them, though, like we sort of said at the top, is that they've looked better with ball in hand, which has been sloppy in the past. They've improved markedly there, and the defense has been pretty good. It's just been shooting themselves in the foot with penalties and cards. That meant they've been playing with a man down, where it doesn't matter how good your defense is, you're eventually going to get worn down. So
100%.
They've looked better at playing the game of rugby. What they haven't looked good at is, let me rephrase that. They've looked good at the game of rugby. They haven't looked good at playing rugby on the international stage, because part of playing rugby on the international stage is dealing with referees, and that's where they're falling down.
Yeah, I mean, what I actually had bracketed as your let's say Korobeti's your best player right now. The other two best players, Karevi, Hooper, not playing. Yeah. Not playing, like I think Hooper played the first.
He played the first game
Argentina.
Against Argentina.
And then was done because he came home after that.
Yeah.
So I go, That's one of your three best players played this tournament. Like, you're not in bad shoes when that's happening. Again, it's not like the people who filled in to do a poor job. Fraser McWright had moments in there. Pete Summer showed that he's definitely versatile enough to go into any of that back row and play. And then Fiketti was very good. Hunter Pasami, when he had their opportunities, took them quite well.
And I'd argue even that Fiketti was the last one brought in when Paisami was injured and they weren't confident in Pattaya in the centres. He's arguably looked the best out of all of them.
It doesn't surprise me. Again, I think he actually suits...
Another Waratah.
Suits the 12 jersey for the Wallabies better. Like Pasami, I still think his best position is outside centre. And Ikitau's far too good. Like, Ikitau's just a level above. And I think, when you get Karevi back, it is like I said in the video, you can get it right and go. You can definitely compete for that World Cup on that side of the draw.
Karevi at 12, and then Ikitau at 13, and then reserves. Or like backups. You've got Fiketti at 12 and Paisami at 13. That's pretty damn good. And that's we haven't even mentioned the Waratah's best player of the year, which was Izzy Parisi, who had a massive injury as well, and who I think still deserves more international action, but has been cut short by injury. Like. Yeah, we also had Tom Banks. I would say that by no means Australia's best player, but he's been a solid option at fullback and things like that. Broken forearm and whatnot.
That was the you can put a positive and negative spin on the injury toll because your team clearly had the longest list. Like if it was like issues with the Wallabies, okay, dealing with the ref, injuries second there, you've just been so unlucky.
Angus Bell's been dealing with injuries and things like that as well. Like
all
across
first
the
ever own try in rugby, but
I don't understand that.
I mean, I feel like again, I was in a pub watching it and couldn't hear the commentary, but I feel like I understand why it ended up being the way it was in a try but I'm like, everyone knows that's Angus Bell's hand, right? Yeah. Everyone here can admit that was Angus Bell's hand. Like, I can understand like the TMO being like, there's probably not enough to overturn.
That's the thing is it's called a try on the field, and they can't see from the camera angle where Sam Whitelock's hand is. But you just you know that because it's like it has to be clear and evident. 99%. Sam Whitelock's hands are on that because the ball's rotating in Angus Bell's hand, right? It's like, I don't know. That one for me was a bit of a head scratcher, but at that point, I'd been so devoid of emotion and feeling that I just accepted it. So, that was a very, very strange one for me. And I mean, we said week in and week out on this podcast about the issues with refereeing and the laws of the game in general. They need to get those cleaned up soon because. Yeah, like that's the kind of stuff that pushes viewers away. Yeah. Like,
and again, I still like every try gets reviewed. So you sit there for a minute, like boom, try, celebration happens. It gets reviewed in the background. You don't need to send it up to the TMO.
Yeah.
And then say he came back and said it was a try. We probably get one replay on our screen. The fact that you saw about 1,000 fucking replays was kind of like, okay.
Makes it worse for everyone.
Yeah, it's like, okay, it's 99%. Angus Bell's hand, but the ref goes, I can't see any camera, it's fucked. Yeah. It's fucked.
Yeah. Look, NRL's not perfect by any means, but I think they've got a smoother product out there than what rugby does at the moment. And there's moaning about the bunker and calls week in and week out in the NRL. None of them have been howlers on the scale of what we saw with the Bernard Foley call or the Angus Bell one, I think. Yeah. Like, imagine if either of those calls had happened in NRL.
Jesus.
I think we might have seen the first ever live decapitation on NRL 360 with Paul Kent taking someone's head off. It's pretty incredible when you think about it.
Yeah.
How those calls got made. And yes, you look at NRL, they've got a smoother product in that regard, in that what's on the field goes by pretty quickly. Like the worst call they had this season was the Cowboys and Tigers game one, but then they came out with a full sort of like review afterwards, explained the decision making. We don't. The closest we had to this was Nigel Owens tweeting about it, and he's as respected as he is, he's not an official representative of the refereeing body or anything like that. So yeah, I don't know.
It's interesting. It's very interesting.
It drives viewers away from the game.
It does.
It again,
that's why would
you want to watch? Why would you want to watch?
the NFL has it so well. Like every touchdown gets reviewed, bang. As soon as it's reviewed, we play on. You don't need to see 1,000 replays. Let's just get the product out there. But yeah, so I mean, Wallabies, lots of good and lots of bad that came from the Rugby Championship. The All Blacks, I said the main one for them was the positive is that they learnt from every mistake. So lost a game, then went ahead and won a game. Lost a game, then ahead and won a game. Lost a game, went ahead and won a game. Now, they didn't lose that second to last one. But what I do think is obviously World Cup time. That's an issue because you don't have an opportunity to learn, especially at knockout stages. So there is a lot, I think, that will be going on around the All Blacks' heads of how do we avoid that situation.
How long has Ian Foster been coach for? I don't actually know. When was he appointed coach?
After the 2019 World Cup.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, so for me, I see what you're saying about learning. I would argue that it's not just the players that were learning, but I think Ian Foster was learning as well of what he needs to do as coach. Like he's had a couple of years in the job, sure, but
and I mean he hasn't been a big coach before this. Like he hasn't had a Super Rugby side. He was just part of the setup.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like trying to think the way to phrase it. Like he's learning as well.
Yeah,
and I think actually. And this might surprise some people, I would say that one of the All Blacks' strengths was in this Rugby Championship was their coaching. Because to come back from a loss like the loss against Argentina, and the losses against Ireland, where they are historic losses, right? Low points for New Zealand rugby. When they're low points, low points. You're treading water in the shallow end of a kiddie pool, right? That's the low point for New Zealand rugby, But that is a low point for those players. It is all relative. Like they've got to bounce back from that, right? And who's getting these players up and ready to go for the next games? It's the coaches. Like who is preparing and who is pointing out these mistakes that they've made and how to fix them? It's the coaches, right?
Yeah.
And the New Zealand side that we saw week 6 of the Rugby Championship in Eden Park, you compare it to week 1 of the Rugby Championship against South Africa.
Yep.
Night and day. Night and day. So much better. So much better, right? You could see even improvement in the players, and that comes with coaching as well. Like Rico Ioane, I think like there was he's a good player. Everyone knows he's a really good player, but there's still was some, I guess, question marks about his readiness and like some aspects of his game. But he's
especially in the centre position.
Yeah. Yep. But he's elevated himself so much in this Rugby Championship over the course of it. So I think the coaching for New Zealand has actually been one of their strengths because it has gotten them through that adversity.
And I mean, and I think a big factor in that is bringing on Ryan and Schmidt, obviously Joe Schmidt, former Ireland coach, as attacking coach. That you can definitely see there's some value in that and value in what they've done with that. And I think it's a lot of people aren't giving Foster the credit he actually deserves for not only battling for adversity himself and getting this team for adversity, but realising he made a mistake and changing it. So Ethan de Groot wasn't selected in the Irish series, and I don't even think he was selected in the first South African game, was brought in, making the changes with the coaches. We saw it in the NFL. I mean, the Denver Broncos brought in a specific time management to deal with it. To sit there as a coach and go, I'm 1 year out from a World Cup. I've got these guys who I brought with me to my job interview. It's not working. I'm making a change, and we're selecting different players. It takes massive, balls, and it takes a lot of perseverance and belief that you can actually do that he's done. So you've got to give him praise there. And
100%.
And I agree with you. So I mean, New Zealand, they'll look at this Rugby Championship and go boxes ticked, but the eye on the prize for next year especially.
Yeah.
South Africa, it's really hard to judge South Africa because they didn't put a lot of feet wrong in this game. You think the Australian one, where they played and lost to Australia, they hadn't won there since 2013. So it's not like it's a run of the mill. They go there and they win all the time. It doesn't just happen. So the only really bad performance they can say is that game against the All Blacks at home that they lost. And to say that there was a bad performance, it wasn't. Like they were in that game for a long period of times. Conscientious decision for shepherding was kind of what could have made or broke their Rugby Championship. So the only kind of outlook I had was, when they play South Africa ball, which I'm calling it now, is their high kicks and they play their style, unbeatable. Like you saw it, we saw it in their first game, you saw it in the second game, so that's positive for them. The only negative is they're just not ruthless enough. When they beat teams, you don't see them beating teams like the All Blacks do, putting people to the sword.
Well, these Argentina games, like kept Argentina in these games.
In these games, which you don't need to win a Rugby World Cup. And if there's ever a specialist team to win a Rugby World Cup, it's South Africa. So I go, they're probably not that worried. Okay, the way they'll be looking at it is they let a Rugby Championship slip through their hands, but I mean, they'll be like, we can still win a Rugby World Cup, and we know we can.
Yeah. Speaking of South Africa ball, though, and I hate to go back and praise New Zealand, but one thing we did say going into the New Zealand series was the non-selection of Reece Hodge would be all right because New Zealand don't typically put that many attacking kicks through. That's one of the main things I saw from them all series was a willingness to put those kick throughs and rely on their speed to get there, and it worked. So, and again, it comes back to coaching. So I'm reinforcing my point here that Ian Foster isn't as bad as some of the people think. It could be worse.
It could be worse.
It could be worse. He's probably got something to him where he's earned that job. He probably has some qualifications.
You don't get Steve Hansen and even Sir Graham Henry who helped make the decision deciding that if you're not any half decent.
Yeah.
Argentina, I just kind of had, look, he ticked a lot of boxes, but he still finished last. So Cheika's got them moving in the right direction, but I think we all want more. Like they're ready to take the next step now and actually finish higher than fourth.
I think it's false to say that we all want more, but not at the expense of our team.
Exactly.
Right.
I want them to beat the Wallabies. I don't want them to beat the All Blacks, and I want them to beat the South Africans. I think everyone wants.
Yeah. If you look at Argentina this year and you saw that they beat two teams, you'd be like, oh, it's great. You don't want one of those teams to be you.
No.
Right. Everyone wants all the other teams to improve, but not to be better than your team.
Exactly.
Right? You always want you want another good second place team, but you want to be first, right? So as much as we want Argentina to improve, we don't want them to improve that much. We still want to beat Argentina.
No, 100%. I mean, like,
but we want them to beat everyone else. Like I want Argentina to beat New Zealand. That was great.
Yeah.
I want them to do it again, right? But I don't want to beat the Wallabies.
I think that they will catch a couple of teams out every year from now on. So it's going to be like if you're not on your A game against them, you're going to be in trouble. So, I mean, we, as like you just said, I think we want them to improve, but not against us.
It's the same with every team in the world. I want all the teams to be equally as good, except for Australia, who I want to be better than everyone else. And that's how every rugby fan is. Well, I want every team in the world, except for South Africa, to be as good as each other, and then I want the Wallabies to be better and the South Africans to be worse.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. A couple of points I wanted to point out. Will Jordan and Geordie Barrett. Now, the reason I point them out is, Geordie Barrett's moved to 12, which I said, I think, very early in the podcast. I really like the idea of that. Yeah. Worked fantastically. Surprise, surprise, Luke knows rugby. But one thing that's still yet to happen, and there's a lot of talk happening about this, is Will Jordan to fullback. He stayed on that right wing, and I know Jeff Wilson, one of our all-time great wingers, said, just stay on the wing and become the greatest right winger in the world. And I go, I get that, but Razor doesn't put him at fullback for the Crusaders unless he's pretty hot shit at what he's going to do. I feel like at some point, I reckon in the Northern Tour, he will get a shot. I thought it was a good opportunity here. I don't mind the selection of Beauden Barrett and keeping Will Jordan there. I think he's actually a better fullback than right winger. His defensive lapses, now you could say, he's not. Those defensive lapses will show in the fullback, but I think his defensive lapses on the wing could have cost us. So we saw it against Australia with Pete Samu going around him. I just think there's an opportunity there for him to play fullback.
Yeah, for sure. 100% agree. I think that's where he will eventually end up.
Off the Rugby Championship and International World for now. Super Rugby draw released. Mm-hmm. Back to the normal format, which is not
geographically split.
Exactly. So it's a bit of everyone everywhere. Super round is round 2, I believe.
It's pretty early on.
So bang on second round, which is good. I think we've actually got the Rebels that year. It's in Melbourne. They signed a 2-year contract, so it wasn't like they were changing it. But hopefully we can get a few more with less COVID situations happening and stuff through that door. I would be very excited for that.
Do we know if there's more games in Fiji and the Pacific this year?
There's a game in the Pacific, 100%. I believe it's actually Moana Pacific versus Adura in over Samoa or Tonga, one of the two. I think it's Samoa. And I believe there's a couple of games in Fiji.
That's
so, I think there definitely is plans. All of the Waratahs at Allianz, every single game this year. And I actually saw the CEO of the Waratahs come out and say they're going to try and create a party stand in one of the parts, which is always good. I've been down in Dunedin where they do that, and it works really well. So if they can, that's great.
Look, for the first time since the Waratahs won Super Rugby, the Waratahs are on an uptick. Since then, they've been trending downwards, right? But this last year, with Darren Coleman and what he was able to do with the team, the exciting moves the team did, like bringing Hooper back, got Angus Bell, got Izzy Parisi in there. You got next generational talents like Tane Edmed and things like that. Wallabies are on a bit of an uptick, which you've got one of the most popular players in Super Rugby who we don't see on the international stage, which is a shame just because there's so much other talent in Charlie Gamble, right? You've got like great entertaining players. Now's the time to capitalise. Start building up that fan base again.
Another good year of recruitment as well. Kurtley Beelbroy brought back. They brought in, I don't know, Max Jorgensen.
Yeah, Jorgensen. I've seen that. Yeah, a very young
Barker boy. Is it?
Yeah, very young. I think he's a 15 or 12 or something like that. He's a back. Yeah, that's for sure. Looks
the part. Nandolo brought in as well, who's still ripping it up for Leicester. So I'm like, it's not looking bad. So I'm excited for the back to this format, because I think the potential there, like you can actually see now just everyone playing everyone, and it's going to be like
What's good is sort of this last year we broke the sort of hoodoo of Australians can't beat New Zealand teams.
Exactly,
they can. They did. This year, hopefully there's progress. There's more. It's not like 3 games out of 10. It's 5 games out of 5 kind of thing. More competitive. Hopefully someone beats the Crusaders. Just as long as this next Super Rugby season will be a success as long as the Crusaders don't win.
I agree with that totally. Because
that's something that all Super Rugby fans can agree.
Yeah, there is. You're not wrong. Yeah. I just wanted to discuss as well before, as we move off Super Rugby, just quickly, Bundee Aki. I don't know if you've seen the incident with Bundee Aki.
No.
Bundee Aki over in Ireland playing for Connacht against South Africa. Against the Stormers. I'm just going to see if I can bring up an image of it. And for everyone who's on the podcast, probably not the best. Oh, have I got it? Hold on.
We'll put Luke will do some video editing magic and put a
for the YouTube people
over me.
You'll be able to see it.
Yeah.
But okay, so the incident happens here. He gets red-carded here.
Okay.
I'm just going to mute it so it doesn't. Sorry, podcast team.
No, that's all right. This is the interactive experience they want. Yeah.
So, man over the ball. Here comes Bundee Aki.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oof. Yeah.
All right. Now, a red card, understandable. But he asked a good question and is getting a bit of stick because he asked it quite aggressively. They're saying to the ref, it's not that bad. What's he meant to do there? The man's gone past the ball. His head's in a dip position. Now, he's obviously come in with a lot of force.
Yeah, he's coming very quickly there.
But he's gone as low as he probably could go. The thing he could improve is obviously take his eyes onto the contact, because he's not looking at the contact when he's making contact. Yeah. It all happens in a split second. It's very tough. Now, what I really liked from this incident was the Stormers ref, a Stormers coach, saying, look, he understands what Bundee's saying and Bundee's trying to do, but they've lost the player. The guy might be out for 4 weeks with a concussion and so on. So Bundee here is pretty much going like, what am I meant to do here? And they're all getting like... He's a little bit animated, but it's not nothing special. Again, it's animated for rugby.
Can you play the start of it again for me? I just want to have a look. For me, it's a good point, and it is an issue. I mean, one thing I'm going to bring this back to the Wallabies All Blacks game. One thing I did like that I did see, which doesn't get called out that much, is one of the New Zealand players, number 6, just dove straight over the top of the ball. That needs to be called more. Like, there are certain things in the ruck where you can maybe call it a bit more. Yeah, so...
Because they do come off their feet like that. Like, that is now what a clean-out looks like, basically. Yeah. So I understand, like, he's doing what a normal clean-out... Look how, like, low the guy's head to the ground is. Like, he's over the ball. He's actually... The attacker's in the wrong position. And this is where I'm starting to kind of go, look, I totally understand where we have to go with head protection, with everything. Yeah. Like, you cannot attack a head. Yeah. But... at some point, we need to hold also the attack accountable. Yeah. Like, how many attackers are dipping their head going into contact and causing issues like that?
Exactly. Know? That, needs to be... You can never excuse contact like that. So so the fact that he's gone in for that contact, he gets the card, that is what it is. But you have to incentivize players to not go in for that contact by knowing that the opposition player will be punished for doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So if we're going to say that's the wrong thing, that opposition player then needs to be, say there's a penalty for you've gone to the wrong position here yourself. You're penalised, and this is a penalty as much for your own safety as it is for you just being in the wrong position.
And it's probably the harshest card you get in rugby is the one where someone's, over the ball, trying to steal it because their body's so low and you're coming to clean them out. That's going to take a learning curve, I think, of at least 5 years before we start to see real improvement from that. Because you can understand the tackle height getting lower. That's an easy one to fix. To fix what these guys who have been trained at since kids to come in, clean out like that, it's going to take a while. So I just wanted to share some sympathy for a former New Zealander who, is red carded. It's not the best look, but it's a tough decision.
Yeah, for sure.
Other than that, there's a Women's Rugby World Cup around the corner, which I'm getting quite excited for. The New Zealand women, I would say, are in a good position right now, a lot better than they were probably looking a year ago. However, the English women have won something ridiculous, like 23 tests in a row and broke the All Blacks record. So they go in as heavy favourites. It is in New Zealand. So exciting times. We'll keep you up to date with that as well, how that's going. Other than that, I think that's the general rugby consensus sorted. I will be releasing, and I've got to send it through to Hughesy first, but I've done a little update to our Sanzar team because pre-tournament we did a Sanzar XV, and obviously a lot of change, like we had Karevi in it, so I've kind of done it with the idea that if these players played, who played
Parecki at 2, I think we picked him, he stays.
I think I've got him slightly out on the outset, just because we didn't have Samasoni Tokieo. So there are players, but I think like Rob Valentini has slotted back into there.
Pistol Pete might slide in there somewhere.
There might be. There was a couple to change because I had to take Hooper out. I'm going to send that to Hughesy to make sure he gives me the stamp of approval, which I'm sure he will because I make some pretty good decisions. I will send that. So keep looking at our Instagram page to kind of see the changes we've made there. Also, we'll obviously do a Super Rugby preview closer to the time. Other than that, Rugby World sorted.
Yep. Well, it will be sorted when they listen to us.
When they listen to us.
When they listen to us, and we fix everything.
We can fix it. We are Mr. Fix It. All right. Thank you for joining us today on That Rugby podcast. I am Luke. That is Hughesy. We will see you next time. Bye.
Peace.